International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances, and this was established in 2010. Its purpose really to raise awareness of the wide range of enforced or involuntary disappearances that occur to people all over the world. Last year, the then Police Minister Fikile Mbalula raised concern over what seemed to be an apparent escalation in missing persons cases across the country, the most vulnerable being women and children. Well, the Pink Ladies is an NGO that focuses on missing children. Its a Co-Director and Co-Founder Jacqui Thomas joins me now from our studios in Port Elizabeth. Jacqui, thanks very much for joining us and welcome to the program. Thanks so much for your time. So, an international day recognizing the disappearance of people, missing people, and this is something that's close to your heart. Let's start by assessing the state of, or how big the problem is in South Africa. Is it one that's escalating? Tell us a little bit about missing people and missing children in South Africa.
Hi Peter, thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. It is something that has escalated, but we don't want to create too much of a panic as well. Just also what one has to bear in mind is that with the advent of social media and people are more able to communicate with each other, it's something that will be brought out to the fore. It's not such a taboo anymore either, and people are talking about it. So although it may have escalated to a certain extent, we've got to look at the bigger picture and look at the fact that it's become more newsworthy.
Statistics are very difficult to come by, and depending on the source, you get different numbers. Do we have any idea just how many children in particular are going missing?
As you say, it's extremely difficult to gauge. What we can tell you only is the cases that we work on ourselves, directly with the police themselves as well. And it's something that we try not to deal in statistic-wise, because one has to take into account so many different organizations that are involved. So we can only ever speak for those cases that we're directly involved in ourselves.
All right, so from your experience, typically what's happening when these children are going missing? Is this kidnapping? Is this deliberate? Is it sometimes even just kids getting lost? What's happening?
There are a multitude of reasons why children do go missing. When you're looking at your very small children, I would say up to the age of 10, 11, then obviously it's of greater concern because a child of that age doesn't usually run away. And when they do go missing, one has to be incredibly vigilant. You've got to look at it in a completely different light. And those are your most likely to have been taken by stranger children. Then your middle-aged teenagers are very often runaways, and then slightly older children as well. But when it comes to trafficking, there is no set age. It could happen to anyone.
So I'm just trying to think, this is happening all around us, and maybe as a public, what sort of things should we be paying attention to, or perhaps changing our behaviors and our attitudes? We're trying to instill an ethos of every child is my child in people again. We'd like to go back to when we were younger, and people were more concerned about other people's children as well, and mothers would look out for other people's children. We can't afford to be complacent at all. There just is no space for that anymore. From where you work and the cases that you're dealing with, who are the most vulnerable and what type of situations?
I would say demographically, if you look at your poorer communities, very often there are areas where children still aren't even documented, which is shocking in this day and age. It shouldn't be happening. And it will always be your poorer communities, your more vulnerable children that don't have parents or only have one parent who has to go out and work all day. So generally it would be your marginalized children.
And I know that you had a project at one stage, fingerprinting young children. Is that still on, and what was that about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Still going strong. It's becoming more and more popular, and we're hoping to move it into just about every province in South Africa very shortly. It's just proved incredibly useful.
Tell us about it.
We'll often team up with different community projects, very often with schools, creches and so on. We go in with the SAPS, we fingerprint and document the children on a certificate, which the parent then takes home with them, because in terms of South African legislation, no one may keep a database of minor children. And that information is kept by the parents, and should the child go missing, the parent has the tools to take to the South African Police, and instead of standing there filling in a 22-page form, when you're incredibly distraught, you have everything you need in one place.
All right, Jacqui, we're going to have to leave it there.
But it just makes the whole process easier.
Okay. Thanks so much for coming through and bringing this matter to our attention, something that we have to keep vigilant about. Thank you so much indeed. All right, so that was Jacqui Thomas, who is the Co-Director, Co-Founder of the Pink Ladies, an NGO dealing with missing children in particular, because today is the UN International Day for the Victims of Enforced Disappearances. Palesa?